Welcome to FCT Brief. Now, this week we are turning our spotlight on the state of governance in Nigeria and its impact on the nation's economic growth. However, the big question citizens are asking is how well is government performance translating into real change for them? Since the beginning of the current administration, promises of reforms, infrastructure renewal, and policies targeted at stabilizing the economy have been at the forefront of public discourse. Some Nigerians note that while progress has been made in areas such as foreign exchange reforms, debt restructuring, and efforts to attract foreign investment, inflation, unemployment, strike, threats by workers in different sectors, and high cost of living remain critical challenges.
Governance experts stress that effective performance cannot be measured by policy announcements alone, but by tangible outcomes in education, healthcare, power supply, and job creation. Citizens, on their part, continue to demand accountability, transparency, and people-centered leadership. According to recent reports, Nigeria's GDP growth has shown signs of improvement compared to last year, but many argue that the pace of development is yet to reflect in the lives of ordinary Nigerians. As governance and economic growth remains under public scrutiny, Nigerians are left to weigh the promises against performance. Daniel Bwala is the special advisor to the President on Policy Communication, and he is live here with us in the studio. It's good to have you once again.
Nice to have you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to see you.
You're welcome. Well, the current economic situation in the country is giving Nigerians a lot of reason for concern. And the latest MBS data suggests that inflation is easing out, yet we see housing, energy, transport, healthcare costs remain stubbornly high. And if we should consider the core living cost of Nigerians compared to their earning capacity, there's a large disparity. So how is government policy also looking at the earning capacity of Nigerians to make it match up with what we have presently in the economy?
Right. Thank you. Good morning. Well, there will soon be an equilibrium, so to speak, between the cost of living and the emerging issues, like what people earn and then what is on ground. Because when you do carry out a reform, usually there will be adjustment. And the adjustment creates discomfort, but temporarily. That's why the aspect of ameliorating the hardship is what government is focused on. And data that is coming out on varied fields suggests the effort of the government, and there is a gradual push to create that equilibrium. So, for example, you heard the report from the MBS on the basics, which is the general inflation. You have also heard it from full inflation. On our own side, we have also done a survey in markets, random survey in markets, Lagos, Kano, and I think a few other places to measure the percentage in which the food items are dropping. I think everybody knows that it will take time, and that this type of metrics, gradually, you cannot wake up overnight and see, say, a drop of bag of rice maybe from 100 to 10 naira. I mean, it will never happen. If it does happen, there is a magic, and that means somebody isn't telling the truth. But when you see the market forces playing their role, the government coming in by providing enabling environment, providing infrastructure in some cases, providing credit in some cases, bringing intervention to the masses in others. I think everybody is aware that the government has been, in the last 2 years, making those efforts in the area of intervention, because that is what you will give in the meantime. Maybe somebody is earning 10 naira, the inflation is at a level that is above him to 50 naira. It will certainly take a long time before it can match up, but government can come in. If you are a worker, you're working with government, and maybe because of this reform situation, you have difficulty buying, say, electronics in your home or anything that you think that is out of reach, we have provided credit. Credit facility that on behalf of government, government standing in for you, you can access it. And then with time, you will pay. Also, if you look at other areas like parents not being able to pay for the tuition fees of their children because of this development, we have provided the funding for students who are indigent members of the society. Even entrepreneurs, there are measures of government that is geared towards helping them to create the balance. So we have a projection, and the projection, we are quite satisfied with the progress we are making because it's meeting up with that expectation. We know that the Nigerian people can have higher expectation than the realities on ground.
Okay, talking about the higher expectations now, the aspect of some other safety nets that were put in place by government, some people say they seem to be shaky. Now, for instance, when the subsidy was removed and the forest was unified, that was the aspect of the CNG that came in, and to a lot of people, it was going to help reduce the cost of transportation and all that. But along the line, just recently, we had that the subsidy on CNG is being withdrawn. So the expectation now out there is, if at this moment a lot of people, most Nigerians have not keyed into the use of CNG, and the subsidy being provided by government is being taken away. So which means we might be back to square one. And also you keep having increases in electricity, because whatever interventions you give the people, if you have other means that are taking the money away from the people, at the end of the day, people seem to be left on the same level.
Here comes then the issue of maybe taxation. If you see the effort of Mr. President, he's looking at finding ways of generating revenue outside of oil dependency. And before he traveled, thankfully he's back, he made mention of the fact that we made with that revenue target even before December. Now, even in England, what they do is that when you are taxed or maybe subsidies are removed in some other areas, the whole idea of government is to create that revenue so they can meet you in other areas. So maybe in this area you've had to endure, is probably the other area is most essential and crucial, and the government is trying to come into that. I am not aware that the CNG initiative, I'm not aware that there is a removal of the subsidy. However, even if the subsidy has been removed, we can all agree that CNG provides a more cheaper platform for transportation service, both for the driver and for the consumers who are the passengers in the long run. The problem we have is investment, and this is why the government keeps asking private sector to be a part of it. Because it's a wonderful initiative. However, because of the limited investment in that regard, the spread is not very much. So it will take time. But we keep encouraging people to see the benefit associated with it so they can take advantage and then invest. In the long run, the impact, in terms of the positive impact, will be felt by the people already in places where the CNGs are working. You know, CNG cars and conversions are working. Everybody has testified, we've been carrying those reports for some time, that life is a lot more cheaper, transportation is a lot more better for the drivers to make money, and for the passengers, they pay less as compared to when they use the regular transportation system, which is occasioned by the petrol.
Well, very recently, we saw the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar say that 2 years on, President Tinubu has not shown any capacity to tackle hunger and poverty. Now, how do you respond to this, given that such criticisms is coming from your former principal? Would you say it reflects a broader crisis of confidence in your new boss administration and, you know, his capacity to tackle the level of hunger in the land?
National interests far outweighs former boss or whatever boss. The most fundamental thing is the issue he has raised. Does he have a valid point? He does not, because the data suggests otherwise. And the opposition, what then do you expect them to do, other than to try their best to see how they can demarcate the government in order to create the buzz around?
But aside, the opposition, this is, what you hear on the streets. A lot of Nigerians are actually hungry. Well,
what you told me is what he said. I'm reacting to what he said. If you have other facts about what the Nigerian people say in relation to what he said, then mention the Nigerians, and I can react to it. I don't react in abstract. You ask what he said. I'm saying, what do you expect him to say? What do you expect him to say other than to try to demarcate the government? But does the fact of what he said are tenable? The answer is no. What did he say? You just referred to what he said. He said, we are creating hunger. Is he blinded, or doesn't he hear the fact of the progress we've made? Take, for example, we are here seated. He has not been able to contextualize the fact that we have increased foreign reserve. He has not contextualized that we have export. This, our net export, has increased. We have less dependency on import. We have created a structure that has based and stabilized the economy. He won't talk about that. He won't talk about the cesarean section we provided in all the hospitals in Nigeria, how that people don't have to suffer. He doesn't talk about that. He doesn't talk about the nail fund we have provided. He should be able to speak and say whether it's working or not. He should also be able to speak about the fundamentals that we set in place. These are the things they destroyed over the years. So whenever somebody is coming, because talk is cheap, whenever somebody comes to say what this person is saying is wrong, ask him to contextualize. Because you cannot, they started first by saying our economic model is wrong. Now, after 2 years, we've been able to prove them otherwise. They've even moved the trajectory. It's no longer distant. They are dog whistling for civil unrest. How then do you judge people who have national interest? At their level, what have they done to reduce the suffering around the people around them? So, talk is cheap. I would rather that you correlate what he said to specifics of fact. This rhetoric of Nigerians are hungry, we have to be able to grow out of it. Nigerians were hungry in 1960, hungry in 1980, hungry in 1990, hungry in 1999. It was between 1999 to 2003 that somebody sang Nigeria Jaga Jaga. You mean he sang in abstract? That was a problem at the time. Yeah, there has never been, let me land. There has never been a time in which there is no one problem or the other as far as the Nigerian people is concerned. But judge the metrics. Have you ever heard any government official come out to say Nigerians are not hungry? No. So judge us not by the rhetoric of Nigerians are hungry. Judge us by the dynamics of what we are putting in place, whether it's not working. Well, like the way your colleague asked the question. He said, we promised CNG, but recently there is a withdrawal of... These are facts you are speaking to. It's much more better
Bwala,
than Nigerians are hungry.
That the Tinubu administration promised renewed hope, and it's all right for Nigerians to ask this question. But I will come back to that right after the short break. Don't go anywhere. We still have more for you on the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Still watching FCT Brief, and we're still assessing government performance. With us in the studio is still the special advisor to the president on policy and communication, Daniel Bwala.
Mr. Bwala, you agree with me that governance is about fixing the problems, and actually the renewed hope was about fixing the problems. But of recent, we had the ASU threats of strike. Now we have the impending SANU, NASU trying to go on strike. We've had the doctors threatening with strike. And some persons say they thought that with the coming of President Tinubu, that the issue of strikes in our Ivory Tower will be a thing of the past. Is it that government is overwhelmed with the challenges they've seen?
Not really. So what happened is that over the last 2 years, you have not heard anything about strike. At least when the government started, there were this trade dispute between the unions and the government. There were a series of meetings. After a time, where we were able to broker a peace that lasted for a long time. And then most recent one with the report you have given, they are threatening. There are two things that account for this type of thing. Number one, it is democratic, normal in every civil society, for unions to always negotiate with government because time passes. They also measure metrics, right? So in their assessment, they may have perceived that in the last 6-7 months, we have made considerable progress with regards to revenue. And so they feel, let's come and also negotiate. Yes, it's natural, let's come and negotiate. That doesn't suggest there is no governance in the country. It just suggests strategic thinking on their part. However, when it comes to trade dispute and resolution of such dispute, there are facts that are usually on the table. Those who are negotiators will tell you that. One, on the part of those who are claiming for increase in whatever way or payment of their outstanding, whatever it is that is the basis for their threat for industrial action, and the government, there is going to be a shift of position. Sometimes the trade dispute orchestrators might be unrealistic with their expectation. It's also part of negotiation. I'm a lawyer. I mean, we deal with negotiation. Sometimes they say aim for the high, arrive at the center. So they will start with a higher figure and they keep going back and back and back, but they have a target as to whatever happens, we're coming down to this level and no lower than that. On the part of government, as you negotiate with them, you also have to be realistic with the book. You have to balance the book. You cannot probably try to please everybody, then eat the future today. Because what the president has been consistently telling the people when this thing started is that all of your claims, even when the idea of minimum wage came, he said, I even have a better plan for you to earn something higher than what you are even projecting. It's part of all of our intention. But then we work with realities. And if the realities of the moment will not meet with the target of what you are saying, because this individual you mentioned who are strengthening the strong action are not the working force or the working class in Nigeria. There are various of these interests that the government will have to satisfy. So when you negotiate, you have to factor that there are other interests. So if you go ahead, for example, and give everything to what they're asking, what about this other individual? By the time people start coming out, the government becomes overwhelmed. So what I'm saying, in essence, natural for trade unions to always negotiate when they feel that situation has improved for you. It does happen in organization now. When the workers see that at a point is that the organization has made some profit, they will also come and negotiate salary raise. It happens at home with wife and husband. When she sees that the income of the man has started to improve, she will then come and start negotiating for better dinner, better breakfast. The same with children. When they see that the situation of the father is improving, they will ask for a little more increase in their, pocket change for school. So it's natural. That's what I'm trying to say. It is not a suggestive proof that government isn't working. It is rather a proof that government is working. That's why they are asking for a raise in what they're asking for. So, and the good thing is that there have been efforts made. The other time, the Dangote matter, we saw how agency of government was able to come into play, and we see how they had amicable settlement. Government and people will find settlement in this. It's not a problem.
Well, from January, Nigeria enters a new tax regime, and there are fears of higher cost, compliance gap, and non-implementation. How will government prevent this kind of reforms from backfiring? Yeah,
I also have heard a lot of issue regarding that. In fact, I got asked about twice or so last week. Somebody who is like the fear of the unknown. But we have done enough to sensitize Nigeria well ahead of time about what to expect when this tax regime kicks off, right? And so I got asked, one of the individuals said that by January when this thing kicks off, it's like we'll go die, because he started talking about the dynamics of tax across all fields. Then I told him, when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. But all of this effort of government is to create and generate the revenue to make your life better. In England, they tax people and then provide free newspaper for people who are, if you live, for example, in the heart of London and you commute around London, you see how people will be pursuing you to give you newspaper free. But that newspaper they are giving is because they tax the people in some ways to provide that. Somebody loves reading, so he will know the importance of the tax. Somebody who does not like reading, you are giving newspaper, newspaper I go chop, he will see no need with that. So whenever it comes to taxation like that, there are individuals who don't know the dynamics, and because of that, they react to immediate impact on them. And there are people who say, okay, but if it is covering in these other areas, it is understandable. I myself, I can tell you, we are hopeful of the time when it will come, but I also will be impacted as a person. I run a law office, I have staffers, I have a lot of things, we pay our tax, we've been that for years, right? So we will see the impact. But my confidence is in what government is able to do with the revenue that is generated across all levels, with the federating unit, infrastructure project across all the Federation of Nigeria. Recently, we released, you see the various releases of funds to places where we develop infrastructure to create free trade, to provide security. We see our investment in the security sector to ensure that our people can live safely and do business safely and go back to the farms. Those who are farming, those who are into IT, they will be able to do IT. And then people who are in other forms of business that are not security related can also have a better Nigeria. You need to have infrastructure in place to make that person get more. If you are spending more money because the journey from here to Bwala because of bad road will cost you more, you see the other areas in which you are taxed that you are crying will provide the road which lessen how much you will spend in going to Bwala. The dynamics of economics is like that. So, and I believe there is a good faith movement on the part of government, because this tax regime thing, there were consultations, there were town halls, there was wide range of consultation that has taken place before coming to what we have come. So ours now is to educate them on the benefit. It's not everybody that will suffer from the tax. There are people that will get relief. From January, it is like heaven came to them, because they will no longer need to pay tax in this area. They will no longer need to pay tax in this area. Those who are heavily taxed will now pay less. So let's be hopeful. And then let's analyze the situation when that time comes.
Okay, analyzing the situation when it comes, there's a situation already on ground. The back and forth between Dangote refinery and also the Nupeng and the oil marketers. Now, there was a time they were talking about their flair for imported fuel because they felt that, look, there's a monopoly that is coming to play. What I'm asking is government thinking about ensuring that no monopoly grows to stifle Nigerians, and also at the same time, also protecting investors to ensure that whatever they put in investing in the system is protected? I needed to balance that discussion.
That is basically what government exists for. I did my master's in international business law, and I remember one of the core components is antitrust law, what we call competition law. No society developed with market monopoly, market dominance, a monopoly of the market, right? And government will not be the one. No country can grow when there is a monopoly of the market. So you have to create an enabling environment that everybody can compete favorably and under a fair rule. And that's what government will do. So government will not support and will never support the idea of monopoly in every sector, not just in oil and gas, in every sector of government. And you have seen what the government is doing now. If you see the liberalization even in aviation, in the airline, so government will not support that. On the other hand, government also ensures that what we do to attract investment is to assure investors that there will be return on investment and that there will be a protection of their asset in the course of investment. Right. Government is also committed to that. So that balance is what actually government exists to do.
All right, Mr. Bwala, we'll still come back to the discussion, but that will be right after this short break. We have some dues to pay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
We don't like to eat better, more nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic. And enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodimma's leadership has turned manifestos into reality, transformations that feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace, and in Imo, it's not left to chance. From land to sky to river deep, Guardians are watching, protecting dreams and opportunity. At Orashi's quiet shore, hydropower is rising, set to energize a growing economy. The change is visible. New roads emerge, industry hums, communities come alive. At the center, a digital revolution. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build the future. As Orashi rises, so does Imo and the hopes of a hard-working people. A new Imo is on the rise.
We're glad to have you back. We'll continue our conversation with Mr. Bwala. Now, the DSS very recently has charged Omoyele Sowore for a false post about President Tinubu, and critics call this political persecution. Now, given Sowore's political stature, don't you think this might risk being seen as weaponizing state security ahead of the 2027 race?
Government does not run government on the basis of stature. However, citizens have their own fundamental rights. And in the democracy, where government goes wrong, for example, and infringe on the right of citizens, that is a court. At the same time, where individuals violate the law, there are agencies of government that will enforce the law. The good thing about this Department of State Services as compared to in the past, where they just catch people abruptly and don't take them to court, is that this Department of State Services under the leadership of Mr. Tosin is following the due process of law. So, for example, to the point where they will inform you of certain things you have done and they will give you the opportunity to track them. If you feel what they are telling you is not right, as Showore did and replied them, they also said they would take the lawful means, and to the best of my knowledge, Showore is not in custody. So that is how institutions are supposed to run government, where you don't infringe on the right of somebody and quickly lock him up. You, first of all, discuss this. So this is an innovation, and not only with Showore. If you have seen the engagement of Department of State Services, very silently, and they have a mandate to preserve the state. They have a mandate to preserve the internal security of the state, right? But there is a court to checkmate them. Just like in America, there is what they call Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, that always people criticize it because it's the act that has created the FISA code where FBI or CIA can bring somebody to court under ex parte. He's not there. They will just ask the court for an order to surveil him or to detain him. So people have criticized that code. But the good thing is that the judgment of that code is subject to review. And the Congress recently did a review and then came to the finding that there were other acts of FBI when they come by ex parte that they gave facts that were not supported. And then there's a correction. This is the beauty about democracy. So Showore, as a citizen of Nigeria, is entitled to his fundamental right of freedom of expression. But you know that where your right stops, someone's own starts. There are things you cannot say.
Okay, just talking about things you cannot say. People also say, is this a subtle way to now begin to infringe on the rights to free speech by Nigerians? Because X was dragged into it, Facebook was dragged into it. So people do not really have the liberty to say what they want to say any longer.
No, you see, freedom of expression, if you are familiar with the law and the Constitution, is that there is a freedom of expression, but there is a consequence of the expression. So if I say something while I'm exercising my freedom of speech and I defame you, the consequence is that you have a right, you have a recourse to court against me, right? I exercise my freedom, but that's a freedom that infringes on your freedom, and therefore you have a right to sue me. When it comes to government, if I exercise of my right, I breach extant laws of the land, then the government can also exercise the rights that is provided to government. That is what the whole idea of the fundamental right. But let me ask you a very good question, and my sister here. Can I call you a criminal? You know for a fact that the law says nobody can be classified with a name that relates to crime for which there is no verdict of court. Nobody can do that. Even SSS cannot call a citizen criminal. That is, the law enforcement can't call you because you have to have been charged to court for that crime, and then the court convict you, then you are a criminal because you have been convicted by court.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I would say it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's where we'll leave our conversation today. We're glad that you could be a part of it. We'll now hand you over to Lagos, where Ibrahim and the rest of the team are standing by to continue with the rest of the show.
Right, thank you very much to Jesu Adewi and Ishimama Imodu for that insightful conversation you had with Daniel Bwala, a very eloquent one.